One of the interesting things regarding the otiot of a Sefer Torah is that there is a tradition of marks on top of certain letters, tagim. And the letters, there are 9 letters, Shatnez gates. The Shin, the Ayin, the Tet, the Nun, the Zayin, the Gimel, and the Tzadi. So those letters, when they are written, they have like a little crown on top of them, a tag. And there's a great discussion in the Meforshim as to whether or not, if those letters do not have tagin, whether the Sefer Torah will be considered kosher or not. Based on the famous Agadah that's brought that Moshe Rabbeinu on Har Sinai saw the tagin in the Torah, these little crowns on the top of these 9 letters. And he asked, so to speak, in heaven, of what necessity are they? What do they do? And he was told that in later generations, Rabbi Akiva would come and he would see in the tagin tilei tilim shel alochas, all sorts of laws and understanding, and that therefore they are not extraneous, they are not just a decoration, but they are part of the letters and part of the written Torah itself. So because of that, most Sifrei Torah, I would say today, if you write a Sefer Torah today, all the Sofrim write tagim. Very old Sifrei Torah that we have found from the Middle Ages, etc., there are some that do not have tagin. So evidently they held that tagin were not, they didn't prohibit the Sefer Torah from being kosher. But we all have tagin, even though we don't know anything special from the tagin. The Rabbi Akiva's traditions somehow are not known to us. Now, in the Megillah of Megilas Esther, so the question arises when we write, for instance, Sifrei Tanakh, like we have the all of the Nevi'im, we read the Haftorah from the Klaf, from the Novi. And there was something at the time of the Gemara called Sifra the Haftarta, which had all the Haftorahs in one, but didn't, not the whole Novi, but just the Haftorahs. But it was written on Klaf, and from the Gemara and Megillah, it's obvious that that was also permissible and used. I still saw Sifra da Haftarta, in fact, in an antique shop in New York, and I purchased it for my synagogue in Monsey. It took a few board meetings to get it paid for, but eventually, so there was such a thing. Now the question is, in the Tanakh, in the Nevi'im, they don't put the tagin. Most of the Sifrei Nevi'im that are written, the letters are written plain, without the tagin. The Torah has the tagin. Maybe they did it specifically to show that it wasn't the Torah, that it was only Nevi'im, Ksuvim. But when we come to Megilas Esther, so Chazal say that Megilas Esther, more than any of the other Megillot, has the greatest resemblance to Torah itself. And the Gemara says that if you cannot study Torah or read Torah, so then you either read Megilas Esther or Sefer Tehillim. They are, so to speak, the corollaries to Torah itself. So, in the Megillah of Esther, the Sofrim were very careful to write with Tagim. But because of the fact that in the Megillah we have something that we don't have in all the Torah itself, we have 3 letters in a row that require Tagim, like Shashgaz, the name of the Sri Samelech. So it's Shin, Ayin, Shin. So so what the Sofrim did is they made artistically. They took the Tagin from the top of the 3 letters, each one having it, and they made out of it forms and shapes. Sometimes it looks like a crown. Sometimes it looks like a flower. Sometimes it looks like a tree. In other words, there was room within the halacha of writing the Tagim. There was room for the creativity of the Sofer as to how he would present it. And that made the Megillah unique. And therefore there arose in the Middle Ages a question in halacha: can you have an illuminated Megillah? Because in the Middle Ages that was Havdol, Elef Havdolas, by all of the prayer books of the non-Jews. They were illuminated. And the illuminated was they were painted, many times painted with gold paint or with silver paint. In other words, it was very expensive and was very decorative, and that was the art of the time. You can go to the museums throughout the world today and see some of these illuminated things. So Jews, in Yiddish they say, "Wie es Christel sich, as Yidel sich." The way it is in the non-Jewish world, that's the way it is in the Jewish world. So we also wanted to have illuminated. Just like the synagogues in the Middle Ages wanted to have stained glass. So there was Shilas halacha about stained glass, whether it's allowed in the Beit Knesset. But there's almost no Beit Knesset in the world that do not have some type of stained glass today. So the same thing with the Megillah. So they began to write Megillah with illumination. Does that passel the Megillah? Now, the laws regarding the Megillah are not as stringent as the laws regarding the Torah. So even if there are letters that are missing, or even an entire sentence that's missing, doesn't passel the Megillah as long as one knows that the sentence is missing and he will read it anyway. So is it all right to have illuminated Megillot? Well, the museums are full of illuminated Megillot because Jews commissioned it. And most of the illumination was done not by Jews. It was done by non-Jewish artists that Jews commissioned to do it. And then the Megillah became so popular, the Megillah, that there were paintings installed in the midst of the Megillah. Not between the words, but there was like where the columns were, then there was a column that had a painting in it. So they had a painting of Queen Esther, they had a painting of Mordechai, the famous paintings of the Haman and his 10 sons swinging from the gallows. And that was common in Megillot. So where did we ever have that? In the Sefer Torah, we would certainly not paint a picture or place something extraneous. But the poskim said that, so to speak, that's part of the Purim spirit. So that even though Purim is encompassed by halacha, it's one area of life where Jews took some liberties. Now, the most famous illuminations in Jewish books are in the Haggadah. The Haggadah Shel Pesach is from the Middle Ages. So there are in the Israel Museum and in the National Library, there are illuminated Haggadahs. Before Maxwell House made Haggadahs. And these illuminated Haggadahs were very expensive, and they commissioned many non-Jews to do it. I have a Megillah at home that was written by a non-Jew. He left his signature, and not only that, you could tell he didn't know what he was writing. He just wrote letters. It all runs together. But it was done because there was an illuminations in it. So the Jews hired him to write the Megillah and to illuminate it, and that became, so to speak, something special, a treasure that people had. And just one other comment regarding the Megillah. We have something that's called HaMelech Megillah. HaMelech Megillah is the beginning of every column, almost every column. Every column in the Megillah, with the exception of 4 of them, begins with the word HaMelech. And so therefore you have to construct, when you're writing, that it should always come out that the first word in the column should be HaMelech. And that was a special kind of Megillah. It doesn't passel if it's not. But nevertheless, it was a special type of Megillah. And that's because Chazal say that every time it says HaMelech in the Megillah, it does not only refer to Achashverosh, who was the Melech Lamata, but it refers to the Melech which is in heaven, which is Kaviyachal, how the Ribono Shel Olam influences the whole story that we read in the Megillah. Rabbi Chananya ben Akash Omer Rotza Kadosh Baruch Hu L'Zakos Yisrael L'Ficha Chir B'Lahem Torah U'Mitzvos Shenemar Adonai Chavei Tzaman Tzidko Yagdil Torah V'Yadir.